Jake Miller opened his eyes to a world that should not exist anymore. The cryopod hissed as it released him into the sterile white medical bay, and his first breath in over a century burned his lungs like ice water. He was supposed to wake up on Earth, but the faces staring down at him were not human. 3 women stood over his pod, and their eyes were too large, and their skin shimmered with colors that shifted between blue and violet in the artificial light. The tallest one spoke in perfect English, and her voice had a musical quality that made his head spin. "You are the last one, and we have been searching for you for a very long time." Jake tried to sit up, but his muscles screamed in protest after decades of frozen sleep. The medical bay around him was too advanced and too clean and filled with technology. He did not recognize, where am I and what happened to Earth? The alien woman with silver hair that moved like liquid metal stepped closer. Her uniform was sleek and form-fitting and bore symbols he could not read. Earth is fine and humanity thrives across 47 colonies, but something happened that no one expected. She paused and glanced at her companions before continuing. Human males stopped being born 105 years. How the words hit Jake like a physical blow. Every child born after the year you entered cryosleep has been female, and human women have adapted. But the galaxy has not. Jake finally managed to sit up, and his head spun with the implications. The third, alien woman who had green skin and eyes like a cat brought him water. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible, and her hand lingered on his for just a moment too long. "My name is Luna, and I am from the Viridian Empire. And this is Commander Aria from the Celestial Fleet and Dr. Zara from the Medical Corps. We found your pod drifting in abandoned space near the old colony shipwreckage." Jake drank the water and tried to process everything. "So I am the only human male left alive." Aria nodded, and her expression was difficult to read. "The only one we know of, and trust me, we have looked everywhere. When the genetic shift happened, it affected every human across every world, and scientists still do not understand why." Jake looked down at his hands, and they were the same hands he remembered, but now they belonged to someone who was apparently a galactic rarity. "What happens now?" Zara smiled and her sharp teeth gleamed. "Now you have choices, and many people want to meet you. The human government wants you for genetic research, and various alien civilizations have expressed interest in cultural exchange." She leaned closer, and her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And there are many women, both human and alien, who would very much like to know you personally." The next few days were overwhelming beyond anything Jake could have imagined. They brought him to a massive space station called Haven Point, where representatives from dozens of species gathered. Everywhere he went, he felt eyes on him, human. Women stared with a mixture of curiosity and something more primal. Alien women from species he could not name watched him with fascination. Some were humanoid with slight variations, and others were so different that he struggled to understand their basic biology, but they all looked at him the same way. A human ambassador named Katie Brooks met him in a conference room with windows that looked out at 3 moons. She was professional and efficient, but he noticed how her eyes kept drifting back. "To him, we need to discuss your future, and the government has several proposals." Before she could continue, an alarm blared through the station. Aria burst into the room with her weapon drawn. "We have a situation, and several ships just arrived unannounced, and they are demanding to see the human male." Katie stood, and her diplomatic mask slipped for just a moment. "Who representatives from the Zytherian matriarchy, and the Azurian queendom, and half a dozen other factions." Aria looked at Jake, and for the first time he saw genuine concern in her alien features. "They all want you, and this could get complicated." Jake found himself in the center of an interstellar incident he never asked for. The various factions argued and negotiated and made offers that ranged from reasonable to absurd. The Zytherians offered him a palace and a title and 50 consorts. The Azurians promised wealth beyond measure and advanced technology. The human government tried to assert jurisdiction and claimed he was still technically a citizen under Earth law. Through it all, Jake sat in a conference room that felt more like a cage. Luna appeared beside him, and her presence was oddly comforting, despite her alien nature. "This must be overwhelming for you." Jake laughed, and the sound was slightly hysterical. "I went to sleep thinking I would wake up on a new colony world, and now I am apparently the most wanted man in the galaxy. What would you do?" Luna considered the question carefully. Her species valued honesty above all else, and he appreciated that I would choose freedom. And you do not owe anyone anything just because of what you are. The decision came to him suddenly and with absolute clarity. He stood up in the middle of a heated debate between 3 ambassadors, and his voice cut through the argument. I am not a prize to be won or a resource to be allocated. I am a person and I will make my own choices. The room fell silent. Jake continued, and his confidence grew with each word. I will travel and I will meet people and I will live my life on my own terms. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. Arya grinned, and it was the first genuinely warm expression he had seen from her. Well said, human. Over the following weeks, Jake began his new life. In a galaxy that had moved on without him. He traveled with a small crew that included Arya and Luna and Zara and Katie, who had resigned from her government position to join him. They visited worlds he had never dreamed of, and met people from 1,000 different cultures, and yes, many women, both human and alien, expressed interest in him. Some were subtle and some were direct and some were so forward it made him blush. But he learned to navigate this strange new reality, with humor and grace. On a planet with purple skies and floating islands, Katie asked him if he ever regretted waking up. Jake watched the sunset and thought about the life he had lost, and the life he had gained. Sometimes, but mostly, I feel lucky. I get to see things no other human, male will ever see. Luna joined them and her hand found his. And you are not alone in this. The galaxy is vast and strange and full of women who look at Jake Miller with fascination. But he has learned something important. He is not just the last human. Male, he is himself, and that is enough. The story of his journey is still being written and he has no idea where it will lead. But for the first time in over a century, he feels truly alive. And that is all that matters.